Hello, it's Melissa Sweet here, public health journalist. We're sitting at the hotel at the Gold Coast where the Congress of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Nurses and Midwives has just wrapped up a sensational 3-day conference. One of the highlights was a presentation by Dr. Doseena Fergie, and I'll ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Doseena Fergie, and I'm a Mabiog and a Wutiti and a Umbanese woman. And I've been in the health workforce for a long, long time, and I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, our elders that have gone before us, who've walked on but have left us a wonderful legacy. And to all those who are listening, our community members out there, carry on the good work, but I acknowledge and I honour you.
And you told us about a big global trip you had taken as part of a Winston Churchill Fellowship. Could you tell us about when you did that, where you went, and what you took from it?
Well, in a nutshell, I was given the Churchill Fellowship to travel overseas, and the objective of the fellowship was to go to visit certain First Nation peoples who had been colonised previously, but I wanted to look at how they have rejuvenated their sense of identity and sense of belonging as a way of healing that intergenerational trauma that all colonised people have suffered. And so I went to Italy, to Finland, Norway, Britain, Canada, from right to left, over to Hawaii, through Fiji, down into New Zealand, and back to Australia. And I left in June. I was supported by Churchill Fellowship, but also my employer, Australian Catholic University, to extend my time to 79 days, one short of 80 days around the world.
Wow.
And I returned feeling extremely empowered by what I saw and observed, and extremely proud of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here.
So what are the main things that you learned from your travels?
I learnt that deficit statistics aren't everything, and what really matters to community and their healing is strength-based programs, to have culture as a centre of your very being, to value your language, to continue your ceremonies and rituals. Yes, we do live in a changing world, but that's really important in terms of who we are in our being as Indigenous peoples. We are unique. We offer the world so much, and we stand on our own ground, actually.
And you made a powerful call to the nurses and midwives in the room here to be more than skills-based professionals. Can you explain what you meant and why that matters?
In universities, we train people to be clinically competent. But as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nurses and midwives, we are uniquely different in that we have a worldview that is different. I don't know, apples and oranges, how different they are. We are different from the Western world. And so therefore I was trying to impress that our culture and who we are as Aboriginal people must not be lost. And in our training in the universities, we need to ensure that the clinical competency and so forth, and all the new things that are happening in the scientific world, etc., doesn't go so far ahead we forget our culture. We forget who we are. Our cultural values of respect, caring and sharing, we don't lose. In fact, that is the most important thing before we are health professionals. So I was trying to give people picture here today the bigger picture of what is happening globally amongst other Indigenous nations, both in the health arena and in the education arena as well.
And in your experience, are universities doing enough to embed culture to make it central in education and training?
Yeah, I think it's been extremely slow, and perhaps we're seeing a wee bit of light. We have a long way to go. But as it was told very eloquently this morning by Gregory Phillips, that it's not us who have the issue. We are in a Western system, and it's up to the white privilege or the dominant society to actually address this situation.
And another thing, you told some very powerful stories from your travels as well around repatriation. Could you tell us the stories? There were two in particular that you mentioned.
Yes, love to. In 1848 and thereabouts, Aboriginal children, they weren't taken, they went overseas with the Catholic Church, the Benedictine monks or the Sisters of Mercy, nuns, in Western Australia to go over, because they were the educators of the time, to go overseas and be educated in the Western system. Now, I'm sure that they were wanting to understand the Western system. Their very intent was to come home and come back to their community. But these children who are 8, 11, they only lasted 3 years. Some even died on the journey over to Europe, and they died from illnesses because they had no immunity. And there are children who are actually buried overseas. One is within the Vatican, under St. Paul's, outside the wall, the basilica there, and the other we found during my journey here, and it was Catherine Mary Palmyra, and she's actually buried in Middlesex in England. And so we're trying to, with the help of the Australian government and the British government, of course, to repatriate her body back. But we need to find her tribal links. Does the community exist still in Western Australia? I don't know. Further research.
Do you know anything about where she came from in Western Australia?
No, but we we're figuring that it must be around Perth, right, because the Catholics were there. They weren't everywhere at the time in that era.
Excuse me. Have you talked to people groups in Perth?
Not yet. I went in June and I've only come back in August, and went straight back to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of interest, I'm sure. And what about the little boy in Italy? Do you know
the little boy in Italy? Well, we're still, yes, I'm sure the Australian Embassy to the Holy See, I'm sure that they are working to figure that out, but I will be there sort of asking the questions.
Yes.
What's been, because it's a matter of finding which of the bones under the Vatican actually belong to those children. I'm sure that's not hard, but in these particular cases where there are issues of healing, repatriation is really critical, because as Aboriginal people we believe that if you are not buried on country, your spirit wanders continually, unsettled, until you are buried in country again. And for those children, it was very strong in those days. They had every intent to come back to Australia. So why should they be buried overseas?
Did you know their stories before you went, or did you stumble across
the first
them?
boy, just prior to going over to Rome earlier this year, I found out about their story. An Australian Catholic uni has actually put out a scholarship in his name for the first time. It was launched on NAIDOC Week for an Indigenous student to go over and study in Rome for a certain period. So that's been really great. But yeah, that's been a...
And you also talked about seeing artefacts. Was that in a museum in Cambridge?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
I went to the British Museum, and also in Cambridge University, in the Anthropology and Archaeology section, they have an Oceania section, and I saw artefacts from all over Polynesia, Melanesia, and Australia there, and it was incredible to walk into an Indigenous environment from long ago and see all these things there. And yes, the things are being looked after really well, and I'm told that a lot of them were gifts. The fact that they are so old, and also knowing that in many of the rich houses, aristocratic houses of people who came over and they took things, one has to sit there and think, what can I do about this? They need to come home to country, those things that were stolen. Not the things that were gifted, but the things that were taken without permission.
And are you pursuing that further? Or
Well, I'm a nurse, so we'll see.
I take that as a yes.
I like to, because that's my passion. I've seen it, I've touched it, and what it does to you is that there's a spiritual thing here. You get really strong in your passion when you know that our people are left over there. There are things over there that don't belong there, and you have this renewed energy. I think. So I'm to retire soon. So.
You've had such an interesting Churchill Fellowship.
Yeah,
For people,
I'm very thankful.
People who want to find out more, will you be writing about it, or how will people hear about it?
Churchill Fellowship is open to anybody to apply. It's a rigorous interview system. If you've got a good project, no matter what path you're travelling, it can be farmers, tilers, security people, whoever. If you've got a good project, you can apply and for this particular funds. It was the largest philanthropic donation time after he died in the Western world. So
and you encouraged Katzenham members
I encourage Katzenham members to apply, and I encourage anybody out there to apply to the Churchill Fellowship. You go on their website, Churchill Fellowship Trust, and they will tell you when the application days are open, how long you've got. Okay, and it's a very simple form to fill in.
Well, it sounds like a brilliant trip that you had. Thank you very much for
thankful.
sharing some of it with us.
Thank you.